The sixth night. When the following night arrived, and Shahrazad was in bed with King Shahryar, her sister Dinarzad said, "Sister, if you are not sleepy, tell us a little tale. Finish the one you started." Shahrazad replied, "With the greatest pleasure. I heard, O happy king, that a second old man with the 2 dogs said." The second old man's tale. Demon, as for my story, these are the details. These 2 dogs are my brothers. When our father died, he left behind 3 sons, and left us 3,000 dinars, with which each of us opened a shop and became a shopkeeper. Soon my older brother, one of these very dogs, went and sold the contents of his shop for 1,000 dinars, through trading goods, and, having prepared himself for his trading trip, left us. A full year went by, when one day, as I sat in my shop, a beggar stopped by to beg. When I refused him, he tearfully asked, "Don't you recognize me?" And when I looked at him closely, I recognized my brother. I embraced him and took him into my shop. And when I asked him about his plight, he replied, "The money is gone, and the situation is bad." Then I took him to the public bed, clothed him in one of my robes, and took him home with me. Then I examined my books and checked my balance, and found out that I had made 1,000 dinars and that my net worth was 2,000 dinars. I divided the amount between my brother and myself, and said to him, "Think as if you have never been away." He gladly took the money and opened another shop. Soon afterward, my second brother, this other dog, went and sold his merchandise and collected his money, intending to go on a trading trip. We tried to dissuade him, but he did not listen. Instead, he brought merchandise and trading goods, joined a group of travelers, and was gone for a full year. Then he came back, just like his older brother. I said to him, "Brother, didn't I advise you not to go?" He replied tearfully, "Brother, it was foreordained. Now I am poor and penniless, without even a shirt on my back." Demon, I took him to the public bed, clothed him in one of my new robes, and took him back to the shop. After we had something to eat, I said to him, "Brother, I shall do my business accounts, calculate my net worth for the year, and, after subtracting the capital, whatever the profit happens to be, I shall divide it equally between you and myself." When I examined my books and subtracted the capital, I found out that my profit was 2,000 dinars, and I thanked God and felt very happy. Then I divided the money, giving him 1,000 dinars and keeping 1,000 for myself. With that money he opened another shop, and the 3 of us stayed together for a while. Then my 2 brothers asked me to go on a trading journey with them, but I refused, saying, "What did you gain from your ventures that I can gain?" They dropped the matter, and for 6 years we worked in our stores, buying and selling, yet every year they asked me to go on a trading journey with them, but I refused until I finally gave in. I said, "Brothers, I am ready to go with you. How much money do you have?" I found out that they had eaten and drunk and squandered everything they had, but I said nothing to them and did not reproach them. Then I took inventory, gathered all I had to gather, and sold everything. I was pleased to discover that the sale netted 6,000 dinars. Then I divided the money into 2 parts, and said to my brothers, "The sum of 3,000 dinars is for you and myself to use on a trading journey. The other 3,000 I shall bury in the ground, in case what happened to you happens to me, so that when we return we will find 3,000 dinars to reopen our shops." They replied, "This is an excellent idea." Then, Demon, I divided my money and buried 3,000 dinars. Of the remaining 3, I gave each of my brothers 1,000 and kept 1,000 for myself. After I closed my shop, we bought merchandise and trading goods, rented a large seafaring boat, and after loading it with our goods and provisions, sailed day and night for a month. But morning overtook Shahrazad, and she lapsed into silence. Then her sister Dinarzad said, "Sister, what a lovely story." Shahrazad replied, "Tomorrow night I shall tell you something even lovelier, stranger, and more wonderful, if I live, the Almighty God willing." The 7th night. The following night Dinarzad said to her sister Shahrazad, "For God's sake, sister, if you are not sleepy, tell us a little tale." The king added, "Let it be the completion of the story of the merchant and the demon." Shahrazad replied, "With the greatest pleasure." "I heard, O happy king, that the second old man said to the demon, 'For a month my brothers, these very dogs, and I sailed the salty sea, until we came to a port city. We entered the city and sold our goods, earning 10 dinars for every dinar. Then we bought other goods, and when we got to the seashore to embark, I met a girl who was dressed in tatters. She kissed my hand and said, 'O my lord, be charitable and do me a favor, and I believe that I shall be able to reward you for it.' I replied, 'I'm willing to do you a favor regardless of any reward.' She said, 'O my lord, marry me, clothe me, and take me home with you on this boat, as your wife, for I wish to give myself to you. I, in turn, will reward you for your kindness and charity, the Almighty God willing. Don't be misled by my poverty and present condition.' When I heard her words, I felt pity for her, and guided by what God the Most High had intended for me, I consented. I clothed her with an expensive dress and married her. Then I took her to the boat, spread the bed for her, and consummated our marriage. We sailed many days and nights, and I, feeling love for her, stayed with her day and night, neglecting my brothers. In the meantime, they, these very dogs, grew jealous of me, envied me for my increasing merchandise and wealth, and coveted all our possessions. At last they decided to betray me, tempted by the devil, plotted to kill me. One night they waited until I was asleep beside my wife. Then they carried the two of us and threw us into the sea. When we awoke, my wife turned into a she-demon, and carried me out of the sea to an island. When it was morning she said, 'Husband, I have rewarded you by saving you from drowning, for I am one of the demons who believe in God. When I saw you by the seashore, I felt love for you, and came to you in the guise in which you saw me. And when I expressed my love for you, you accepted me. Now I must kill your brothers.' When I heard what she said, I was amazed, and I thanked her and said, 'As for destroying my brothers, this I do not wish, for I will not behave like them.' Then I related to her what had happened to me and them, from beginning to end. When she heard my story, she got very angry at them, and said, 'I shall fly to them now, drown their boat, and let them all perish.' I entreated her, saying, 'For God's sake, don't. The proverb advises, be kind to those who hurt you. No matter what, they are my brothers after all.' In this manner I entreated her, and pacified her. Afterward she took me and flew away with me until she brought me home and put me down on the roof of my house. I climbed down, threw the doors open, and dug up the money I had buried. Then I went out and, greeting the people in the market, reopened my shop. When I came home in the evening, I found these two dogs tied up, and when they saw me, they came to me, wept and rubbed themselves against me. I started, when I suddenly heard my wife say, 'O my lord, these are your brothers.' I asked, 'Who has done this to them?' She replied, 'I sent to my sister, and asked her to do it. They will stay in this condition for 10 years, after which they may be delivered.' Then she told me where to find her and departed. The 10 years have passed, and I was with my brother on my way to her to have the spell lifted, when I met this man together with this old man with the deer. When I asked him about himself, he told me about his encounter with you, and I resolved not to leave until I found out what would happen between you and him. This is my story. Isn't it amazing?' The demon replied, 'By God, it is strange and amazing. I grant you 1/3 of my claim on him for his crime.' Then the third old man said, 'Demon, don't disappoint me. If I told you a story that is stranger and more amazing than the first two, would you grant me 1/3 of your claim on him for his crime?' The demon replied, 'I will.' Then the old man said, 'Demon, listen.' But morning overtook Shahrazad, and she lapsed into silence. Then her sister said, 'What an amazing story.' Shahrazad replied, 'The rest is even more amazing.' The king said to himself, 'I will not have her put to death until I hear what happened to the old man and the demon. Then I will have her put to death, as is my custom with the others.' The 8th night. The following night Dinazad said to her sister Shahrazad, For God's sake, sister, if you are not sleepy, tell us one of your lovely little tales to while away the night. Shahrazad replied, with the greatest pleasure. I heard, O happy king, that the third old man told the demon a story that was even stranger and more amazing than the first two. The demon was very much amazed, and, swaying with delight, said, I grant you 1/3 of my claim on him for his crime. Then the demon released the merchant and departed. The merchant turned to the 3 old men and thanked them, and they congratulated him on his deliverance and bade him goodbye. Then they separated, and each of them went on his way. The merchant himself went back home to his family, his wife and his children, and he lived with them until the day he died. But this story is not as strange or as amazing as the story of the fisherman. Dinarzad asked, Please, sister, what is the story of the fisherman? Shahrazad said, The story of the fisherman and the demon. It is related that there was a very old fisherman who had a wife and 3 daughters, and who was so poor that he did not have even enough food for the day. It was this fisherman's custom to cast his net 4 times a day. One day, while the moon was still up, he reached the outskirts of the city and came to the seashore. Then he set down his basket, rolled up his shirt, and waded to his waist in the water. He cast his net and waited for it to sink. Then he gathered the rope and started to pull. As he pulled little by little, he felt that the net was getting heavier until he was unable to pull any further. He climbed ashore, drove a stake into the ground, and tied the end of the rope to the stake. Then he took off his clothes, dove into the water, and went around the net, shaking it and tugging it until he managed to pull it ashore. Feeling extremely happy, he put on his clothes and went back to the net. But when he opened it, he found inside a dead monkey, which had torn it apart. The fisherman felt sad and depressed and said to himself, There's no power and no strength save in God the Almighty, the Magnificent, adding, Indeed, this is a strange sketch. Then he began to recite the following verses. O you, who brave the danger in the dark, reduce your toil, for gain is not in work. Look at the fisherman who labors at his trade, as the stars in the night their orbits make, and deeply waded into the raging sea, steadily gazing at the dwelling net, till he returns, pleased with his nightly catch, a fish whose mouth the hook of death has cut, and sell it to a man who sleeps that night, safe from the cold and blessed with every wish. Praised be the Lord, who blesses and withholds. This casts the net, but that one eats the fish. But morning overtook Shahrazad, and she lapsed into silence. Then her sister Dinarzad said, Sister, what a lovely story. Shahrazad replied, Tomorrow night I shall tell you the rest, which is stranger and even more wonderful, if the king spares me and lets me live. The 9th night. The following night Dinarzad said to her sister Shahrazad, Sister, if you are not sleepy, finish the fisherman's story. Shahrazad replied, with the greatest pleasure. I heard, O happy king, that when the fisherman finished reciting his verses, he pushed the donkey out of the net and sat down to mend it. When he was done, he wrung it out and spread it to dry. Then he waded into the water and, invoking the Almighty God, cast the net and waited for it to sink. Then he pulled the rope little by little, but this time the net was even more firmly snagged. Thinking that it was heavy with fish, he was extremely happy. He took off his clothes and, diving into the water, freed the net and struggled with it until he reached the shore. But inside the net he found a large jar full of nothing but mud and sand. When he saw this, he felt sad and, with tears in his eyes, said to himself, This is a strange day. Gods we are, and to God we return. And he began to recite the following verses. O my tormented fate, forbear, or if you can't, at least be fair. I went to seek my daily bread, but they said to me it was dead, and neither luck nor industry brought back my daily bread to me. The Pleiads many fools attain, while sages sit in dark disdain. Then the fisherman threw the jar away, washed his net, and, wringing it out, spread it to dry. Then he begged the Almighty God for forgiveness, and went back to the water. For the third time he cast his net and waited for it to sink. But when he pulled it up, he found nothing inside but broken pots and bottles, stones, bones, refuse, and the like. He wept at this great injustice and ill luck and began to recite the following verses. Your livelihood is not in your own hands, neither by writing nor by the pen you drive. Your luck and your wages are by lot. Some lands are waste and some are fertile lands. The wheel of fortune lowers the men of worth, raising the base man who deserves to fall. Come then, O death, and end this worthless life. Where the ducks soar, while the falcons are bound to earth. No wonder that you see the good man poor, while the vicious exalts in his estate. Our wages are allotted, 'tis our fate. To search like birds for gleanings everywhere, one bird searches the earth from east to west, another gets to titbits well addressed. Then the fisherman raised his eyes to the heavens, and, seeing that the sun had risen, and that it was morning and full daylight, said, O Lord, you know that I cast my net 4 times only. I have already cast it 3 times, and there's only one more try left. Lord, let the sea serve me, even as you let it serve Moses. Having mended the net, he cast it into the sea and waited for it to sink. When he pulled, he found that it was so heavy that he was unable to haul it. He shook it and found that it was caught at the bottom, saying, There is no power or strength save in God, the Almighty, the Magnificent. He took off his clothes and dove for the net. He worked at it until he managed to free it, and as he hauled it to the shore, he felt that there was something heavy inside. He struggled with the net until he opened it, and found a large long-necked brass jar, with a lead stopper bearing the mark of a seal ring. When the fisherman saw the jar, he was happy and said to himself, I will sell it in a copper market, for it must be worth at least 2 measures of wheat. He tried to move the jar, but it was so full and so heavy that he was unable to budge it. Looking at the lead stopper, he said to himself, I will open the jar, shake out the contents, then roll it before me until I reach the copper market. Then he took out a knife from his belt and began to scrape and struggle with the lead stopper until he pried it loose. He held the stopper in his mouth, tilted the jar to the ground and shook it, trying to pour out its contents, but when nothing came out, he was extremely surprised. After a while, there began to emerge from the jar a great column of smoke, which rose and spread over the face of the earth, increasing so much that it covered the sea and rising so high that it reached the clouds and hid the daylight. For a long time, the smoke kept rising from the jar. Then it gathered and took shape, and suddenly it shook and there stood a demon, with his feet on the ground and his head in the clouds. He had a head like a tomb, fangs like pincers, a mouth like a cave, teeth like stones, nostrils like trumpets, ears like shields, a throat like an alley, and eyes like lanterns. In short, all one can say is that he was a hideous monster. When the fisherman saw him, he shook with terror, his jaws locked together, and his mouth went dry. The demon cried, O Solomon, prophet of God, forgive me, forgive me. Never again will I disobey you or defy your command. But morning overtook Shahrazad, and she lapsed into silence. Then Dinarzad said, Sister, what a strange and amazing story. Shahrazad replied, Tomorrow night I shall tell you something stranger and more amazing, if I stay alive. The 10th night. The following night, when Shahrazad was in bed with King Shahryar, her sister Dinarzad said, Please, sister, finish the story of the fisherman. Shahrazad replied, With the greatest pleasure. I heard, O happy king, that when the fisherman heard what the demon said, he asked, Demon, what are you saying? It has been more than 1,800 years since the Prophet Solomon died, and we are now ages later. What is your story, and why were you in this jar? When the demon heard the fisherman, he said, Be glad. The fisherman cried, O happy day! The demon added, Be glad that you will soon be put to death. The fisherman said, You deserve to be put to shame for such tidings. Why do you wish to kill me? I, who have released you and delivered you from the bottom of the sea and brought you back to this world. The demon replied, Make a wish. The fisherman was happy and asked, What shall I wish of you? The demon replied, Tell me how you wish to die, and what manner of death you wish me to choose. The fisherman asked, What is my crime? Is this my reward from you for having delivered you? The demon replied, Fisherman, listen to my story. The fisherman said, Make it short, for I am at my rope's end. The demon said, You should know that I am one of the renegade, rebellious demons. I, together with the giant Sakhar, rebelled against the prophet Solomon, the son of David, who sent me against Asaph ibn Bakia, who took me by force and bade me to be led in defeat and humiliation before the prophet Solomon. When the prophet Solomon saw me, he invoked God to protect him from me and my looks and asked me to submit to him, but I refused. So he called for this brass jar, confined me inside, and sealed it with a lead seal on which he imprinted God's Almighty's name. Then he commanded his demons to carry me and throw me into the middle of the sea. I stayed there for 200 years, saying to myself, Whoever sets me free during these 200 years, I will make him rich. But the 200 years went by, and were followed by another 200, and no one set me free. Then I vowed to myself, Whoever sets me free, I will open for him all the treasures of the earth. But 400 years went by, and no one set me free. When I entered the next 100 years, I vowed to myself, Whoever delivers me during these 100 years, I will make him king, make myself his servant, and fulfill every day 3 of his wishes. But that 100 years too, plus all the intervening years, went by, and no one set me free. Then I raged and raved, and growled and snorted, and said to myself, Whoever delivers me from now on, I will either put him to the worst of deaths, or let him choose for himself the manner of death. Soon you came by, and set me free. Tell me how you wish to die. When the fisherman heard what the demon said, he replied, To God we belong, and to him we return. After all these years, with my bad luck, I had to set you free now. Forgive me, and God will grant you forgiveness. Destroy me, and God will inflict on you one who will destroy you. The demon replied, It must be. Tell me how you wish to die. When the fisherman was certain that he was going to die, he mourned and wept, saying, O my children, may God not deprive us of each other. Again he turned to the demon and said, For God's sake, release me as a reward for releasing you and delivering you from this jar. The demon replied, Your death is your reward for releasing me and letting me escape. The fisherman said, I did you a good turn, and you are about to repay me with a bad one. How true is the sentiment of the following lines. O'er kindness they repaid with ugly deeds. Upon my life the deeds of men depraved. He who the undeserving aids will meet the fate of him who the hyenas saved. The demon said, Be brief, for as I have said, I must kill you. Then the fisherman thought to himself, He is only a demon, while I am a human being, whom God has endowed with reason and thereby made superior to him. He may use his demonic wiles on me, but I will use my reason to deal with him. Then he asked the demon, Must you kill me? When the demon replied, I must, the fisherman said, By the Almighty name that was engraved on the ring of Solomon, the son of David, will you answer me truthfully if I ask you about something? The demon was upset and said with a shudder, Ask and be brief. But morning overtook Shahrazad, and she lapsed into silence. Then Dinarzad said, Sister, what an amazing and lovely story. Shahrazad replied, What is this, compared with what I shall tell you tomorrow night, if the king spares me and lets me live? It will be even more amazing.